So Visions of Eternity brings us brand new Elite Specializations, and well, they come with a lot of new mechanics. I've taken the time to break them down for you. At the end, I'll also share my tier list where I rank them based on smooth gameplay and fun. For me, it just has to feel right. I'll look at how they perform in open world, their potential in group play, the animations, the uniqueness, and of course the lore. Now keep in mind that this is all subjective, so definitely form your own opinion too. And hey, if you like these Elite Specializations and you're thinking of getting the expansion, consider using the link in the description or the comments. It supports the channel at no extra cost to you. It's me, Kyo, and let's dive into the video. Starting off with the Paragon, the Warriors Elite Specialization. And this one is already pretty special, since it was one of my favorite professions in the original Guild Wars. Many of the class fantasy elements and even some of the skill names make a return here. The Paragon's class mechanic is motivation, which fuels the effects of your chants. You'll see your motivation bar right next to your chant skills. These chants replace the warrior's regular burst skills. Chants both give an immediate effect and an effect over time, and they're mostly focused on buffing your allies. So yeah, this is definitely a support focused elite specialization. You gain motivation by using chants and burst skills. Every time you use them, you build up motivation points. Once you pass certain thresholds, your chants become stronger. That means the more motivation you stack up, the better buffs you get. And it even boosts your damage. Of course, I had to use the spear to play into the class fantasy, but honestly, I had a hard time keeping my motivation high with that weapon. Once I swapped to a staff, it became much easier to build and maintain motivation, which made me way more effective as a Paragon. This might change in the future, so always keep an eye out on the latest builds. Your utility skills as a Paragon are called commands. A command gives an immediate effect, followed by an echo. Basically, an echo is a second effect that triggers shortly after you use the skill. This means you often need to think a step ahead when using them, because there is a second effect coming a few seconds after you use your command. What I really enjoy is that many of these skills share names or references from the original Guild Wars. Back then they belonged to either the warrior or the Paragon profession. And just like before, the commands also are very supportive in nature. Take for example Brace Yourself. Brace Yourself gives barrier to you and your allies, and the echo effect applies barrier again, either after a short interval or when you use a burst skill. Or take for example Never Surrender, which breaks stun and gives boons. Then, after a short delay, the echo spreads boons to your allies as well. The Paragon's elite skill, We Will Never Yield, keeps your health from dropping below 0 for a short time, and it even echoes this effect to your allies. It's definitely a promising skill, but more on the situational side. Think less experienced groups or those dire clutch moments where you need to use it. Visually, the elite skill does show the classic Paragon wings from Guild Wars 1, but honestly, they feel a bit small and a little bit underwhelming. I'd love to see them bigger and more prominent like in Guild Wars 1, where wings appeared every time you use certain skills. One thing I noticed is that the animations for commands and chants aren't very distinct. From a distance they all look the same, which makes it harder to recognize what's happening. On the bright side, there are traits that grant alacrity, which is a super useful boon in endgame content. Take for example Inspiring Implements, which makes your weapon skills 4 and 5 generate motivation, or Roaring Reveille, combined with Tactics, lets your Warhorn skills 4 and 5 grant extra boons and extend boon duration. As for the chants, they really shine in group play, since they're mainly supportive. If you're going solo or exploring the open world, Chant of Action is probably your best bet. It works fine for casual solo play and discovering the world, but with a strong focus on team support, you might be better off running something like a Berserker when playing alone. It feels solid, but I had to keep an eye on my motivation the whole time. It leans heavily into support, it works well, but it won't melt your enemies quickly. Moving on to the Luminary. The Guardian Elite Specialization is a Luminary. The Luminary, along with the Antiquary, really feels like the odd ones out in this round of Elite Specializations. From the trailer, it looked pretty basic at first, but there is more to it than meets the eye. It actually ties into the end of the Dragon Cycle. With the Flame Legion officially rejoining the other legions, and the Iron Legion appointing a successor to Smolder, the two legions wanted to mark this new era with a new joint project. And thus the Luminary came to be. Its new mechanic is the Radiant Shroud. So just like the Necromancer and the Spectre, the Guardian now gets his own version of a shroud. Once you enter Radiant Shroud, your skills 2, 3, 4 and 5 all amplify the effects of your skill 1, Glaring Burst. Depending on your choice, this can either be for support or damage. For example, skill 2, Dazzling Hammer, deals damage and amplifies Glaring Burst to hit even harder. Meanwhile, skill 3, Luminous Staff, heals allies and amplifies Glaring Burst to heal instead of damage. One important thing to note, the Luminary's virtues don't change, you still keep the core Guardian ones. However, it does have traits that reduce virtue cooldowns whenever you use Luminary weapons from the Radiant Shroud. For utility skills, the Luminary uses stances, which are instant or almost instant effects that mix offensive and defensive. For example, Effulgent Stance grants barrier and light aura to allies, then charges up a burst of light whenever you strike or get struck. If it fully charges, the burst dazes enemies around you. And then there is Piercing Stance. This one looks especially strong for meta builds, giving you a 15% damage boost against crowd-controlled or immobilized enemies. The elite skill Daring Advance also comes as a stance. You leap to a target area, tether nearby enemies and empower your allies. If those tethered enemies try to run beyond the range, they get stunned. When it comes to traits, the Luminary has a mix of supportive and offensive options. A lot of them revolve around the light aura, which helps you reduce incoming condition damage. For example, Shining Restoration, which grants light aura whenever you use a healing skill. Or Resplendent Virtues, which grants boons to nearby allies whenever you activate a virtue skill. And then there is the Sovereign of Light trait. This trait gives you light aura when entering Radiant Shroud and makes your Luminary skills detonate the aura, damaging enemies while also healing allies. Overall, I can definitely see the Luminary carving out a spot in the meta. But at the same time, it feels like it doesn't fully know what it wants to be. Its traits are heavily tied to virtues, giving you reduced recharge of your virtues when you use a radiant weapon from the Shroud. But if you want to play DPS, the first three traits are mostly healing focused, while the stances lean much more into DPS. And honestly, using skill 1 of the Shroud after choosing a weapon feels a little bland. It doesn't really change enough to make each weapon feel unique. In open world, the Luminary has no problem surviving with all its virtues, weapons and stances, but it plays more like a tank. Strong defense, but without standout damage skills. It feels a little less unique. For me, it felt a bit slower compared to a Dragon Hunter or a Willbender Elite Specialization. Still, it gets the job done. Moving on to the Conduit. This Elite Specialization has a strong connection to the original Guild Wars. It channels the legend of Raza. In the original game, Raza was a hero who could change between any profession. But Raza wasn't a normal human. He was created into the mists. He had human knowledge, but didn't experience human emotions. Back to Guild Wars 2. The Conduit lets you access the legendary Conduit stance, allowing you to use Raza as a legend. This gives you a brand new skill, Cosmic Wisdom. Cosmic Wisdom boosts your attributes based on your current legend. Raza can tap into a bit of everything. For example, if you use his Dervish stance, he gains an increase in almost all attributes. In the Assassin stance, Shiro, you gain power and ferocity. In the Centaur stance, Ventari, you gain healing bonuses. These skills are powered by a new mechanic called Affinity. You gain Affinity by using a legend skill that costs energy. The more affinity you have, the longer you can keep Cosmic Wisdom active. As you probably know, Revenants can attune to 2 legends at once. There's even a trait that lets you get Cosmic Wisdom from your second legend too. So if you use both Assassin stance and the Demon stance, you'd get the power and ferocity of the Assassin and the condition damage and the expertise of the Demon. That opened up a lot of fun build options for me. Using Raza's legend also gives you new utility skills. Each utility skill is enhanced by the other legend you're using. For example, if your first legend is Raza and your second legend is Malix, the Demon stance, then your Hex Eater Vortex skill on Raza gets an extra effect. If you were using Shiro, then Beguiling Haze would get a bonus effect instead. This might sound a bit complicated at first, but it's actually pretty easy to get into once you give the Conduit a try. The elite skill Twin Moon Sweep lets you and Raza strike an area together, and yes, this skill is also enhanced by your other legend. For example, using Malix, the demon stance, you inflict a condition. Shiro immobilizes enemies and deals extra damage, Ventari heals, and Jalis, the dwarf stance, grants a bunch of boons. In the Raza stance or the Dervish stance, you also get a stun break with Gladiator's defense, and swapping legends is encouraged to keep your Cosmic Wisdom active with the right traits. It really motivates active play. The Conduit's traits are heavily focused on affinity and the Cosmic Wisdom stance. For instance, Expanded Consciousness increases your maximum affinity, letting you benefit longer from Cosmic Wisdom. Recurring Insight reduces the cooldown of Cosmic Wisdom when swapping legends, and the more affinity you have, the shorter the cooldown. Honestly, this Elite Specialization surprised me. It is really fun to play, and there are lots of opportunities for both defensive and offensive builds, whether you are solo or in a group. I'm excited to dive a little deeper into build crafting with this one. The only missed opportunity here is not including an actual dervish profession from the original game. They appear in Living World Season 4, and now their powers are kind of pushed into the Revenant through Raza, who was originally a Ritualist. Oh well, let's move on. The Amalgam. The Amalgam is the elite specialization for the engineer. This new elite specialization lets your engineer morph using Azuran technology. Your tool belt skills are replaced by a set of selectable skills, which can either be supportive or offensive. You can further enhance these skills by evolving, which gives you the strain effect. Evolving is done by using skill 5 of your replace toolbar. It lasts for a short time and it boosts your replace toolbar skills. For example, the skill Obliterate normally only breaks barriers and causes bleeding. When morphed, it also grants Might and a buff that enhances the Might boon. The Amalgam also gains access to stances. Many of these are condition based, making them effective in condition focused builds. The Liquid State skill turns the engineer into a puddle, evading attacks, similar to what the Weaver can do with the Earthen Vortex skill. The Plasmic State skill and the Elite Flux State apply multiple conditions and temporarily increase outgoing condition damage. Unlike the Conduit, when evolved, these skills do not gain extra effects. Extra effects only apply to morph skills, which replace your tool belt. The traits start out support focused, giving extra healing with barrier. For example, Intervating Alloy lets you heal every second while you have a barrier, and also heals when you evolve. Later, traits turn more condition based, like Carbolic Composition, which makes your skills inflict poison on hit and increases the duration of the poison you apply. The Grandmaster traits, the final line of traits, gives you room to experiment. For example, Symbiotic Synergy lets evolve recharge morph skills and increase the strike damage of morph skills. You can choose to focus on using your evolve skills efficiently, recharging them when you evolve, or take a supportive route, sharing the strain effects you get from evolving with your allies. You can also focus on gaining more evolve charges with increased effects. This is the room you have in this line of traits. And the skill animations, they look great. They look impressive, even if some feel like recolors with a new animation. Each one feels distinct, something I think is missing for the Luminary and the Paragon. The mechanics are also easy to understand. In open world, the Amalgam plays really well. Evading as a puddle is great for survival, and dealing damage with morph skills feels smooth. It is also great for staying alive, even with suboptimal gear I was using. I can see the Amalgam having a strong presence in builds. The strain enhancements, the buffs you get when evolved, can, with the right traits, be extended to allies. This lets you share unique effects that no other profession can provide, boosting your team's output. Add in the strong condition and crowd control skills, and the Amalgam can shine as a condition damage build, even in PvP. Moving on to the Antiquary. The Antiquary is the elite specialization for the thief. This elite specialization is a bit of an odd one out. Even the icon makes it seem somewhat chance-based, and well, it is kind of true. Using the Antiquary replaces your steal skill with Scrit Swipe. This skill commands a Scrit to pilfer artifacts from an enemy. Stealing an artifact fills up 2 skills or 3 with a specific trait with new abilities. These skills are somewhat random. Like steal itself, you're never completely sure what you'll get. Once you steal an artifact, you gain offensive or defensive artifact skills in these slots, letting you either damage foes or support yourself and your allies. The artifacts are random, but the split deck trait lets you guarantee 1 offensive and 1 defensive artifact for more consistency. Then there are the double edge skills the Antiquary provides. As the name suggests, these skills have a double edge. Using the skills for the first time gives a positive effect, healing or damage. You can then use it again while it's on cooldown to trigger a backfire, a negative effect. For example, Stone Summit Cannon summons a squid that fires a mortar at your target, dealing damage. Using it again, and the backfire effect makes the mortar explode on your own location, damaging everybody nearby, including you. At first, this seems useless, but against a big boss in a meta event or raid, you can use it again strategically to deal extra damage while benefiting from healing or condition cleansing from your allies. Another example is the Inquest Portal Device skill, which lets you shadow step to an enemy, dealing conditions and damage. Using it again deals damage to both you and your enemies, while knocking you down. But if you have stability, it won't knock you down. So yes, it's double edge, but it can be used smart. The elite skill, Scrit Scuffle, overloads you with artifacts that you can quickly use. Be careful though, one slot might contain a bomb that explodes in your hands, dealing damage to you. The traits focus on controlling your artifacts. You can guarantee offensive or defensive artifact skills, reshuffle to replace a skill, or even add a third skill. Other traits, like Scoundrel's Luck, reduce the negative effects of backfire on double edge skills. Personally, I'd pick Prodigious Pincher, a Grandmaster trait that lets you pilfer more often after spending a certain amount of initiative. The concept of the Antiquary is really fun, but it feels inconsistent. The focus on artifacts is high, yet the skills you get are random. You might want to deal power damage, but end up with condition artifacts. The randomness can either hurt or help you with survival and damage output. In open world, it feels like a bit of a mixed bag. It's fun but messy at times. Still, the unpredictability makes it playful and refreshing when you just want to experiment. Over time, I'm sure strong builds will emerge, but for now, the Antiquary is a fun, unique take on the thief, often a mix of chance and strategy, but it doesn't feel quite dependable yet. Alright, the last one in the medium category, the Galeshot. As a Galeshot, you gain access to the Cyclone Bow, which you can use by pressing the button above your health bar. You'll also notice a number of arrows next to the icon. Most of the Cyclone Bow skills consume these arrows, which recharge automatically both in and out of combat. The Cyclone Bow gives you familiar skills, but with a twist. Quarry's Peril, for example, looks like a longbow barrage, and Fleeting Zephyr resembles Quickshot. Using arrow-consuming skills builds Wind Force, a new buff for the Galeshot. Wind Force increases your outgoing damage and movement speed while using the Cyclone Bow. Once you reach 5 stacks, the threshold, your first skill changes to Hawkeye, an epic attack where you jump into the air and strike your enemies and nearby foes, consuming all your Wind Force. You can choose to carefully stack Wind Force for extra damage or hit the threshold and unleash everything at once with Hawkeye. The Galeshot also gains Squalls, near instant skills that deal damage or grant super speed and swiftness. These become very important later. Soothing Breeze heals you and your pet while both giving you super speed, letting you move really quickly. Piercing Gales deals damage and applies a lot of vulnerability to enemies. Mistral applies chill when arrows firing through it. The elite skill, Perfect Storm, summons a tornado that travels and damages enemies along its path. It stops at a location, continues to deal damage, and lasts for a short duration. The Galeshot's traits are primarily damage focused. Some traits grant swiftness or super speed, which can be combined with Bird of Prey, boosting your damage by 15% while under these effects. Hawkeye paired with Jetstream gives you super speed after using it, and combining that with Gale Force adds another 25% damage boost. Swiftness and super speed become excellent damage modifiers for the Galeshot. In open world, the Ranger is incredibly strong. With a pet, ranged attacks, and crowd control, it's easy to survive. Galeshot makes open world combat feel great. The mobility with Whirlwind, running around with super speed while dealing damage is fantastic. The Cyclone bow feels like a mix of short bow and long bow, so it may not feel as fresh as some other Elite Specializations, but its mechanics are very enjoyable and allow for high damage even with suboptimal gear. Overall, the Galeshot is really easy to survive with, fun to play, and it fits the Tango aesthetic well. It's a nice nod to the original Guild Wars lore, even if it's mostly visual. Moving on to the light professions. Starting off with the Troubadour, the elite specialization for the Mesmer in Visions of Eternity. As a Troubadour, the Mesmer loses the ability to summon clones. Instead, these clones are replaced by notes, which you gain through abilities and traits that would normally create clones. Instead of your shatter skills, you now have instruments. Rather than shattering your clones, you summon an instrument that has a one-time effect and lasts for a period of time. The more notes you have, the longer the instrument persists. While an instrument is active, it also provides a short-lasting effect that boosts healing for allies and increases your damage and condition damage. So, collecting notes and using all your instruments is highly beneficial. Quickly generating notes and spending them on instruments stacks these effects. Skill 1, the lute, and skill 2, the flute, deal damage, while skill 3, the drum, stuns, and skill 4, the harp, heals. Your skill 5, Crescendo, deals damage and applies a barrier by default. Having multiple instruments active increases both the damage and the barrier you get, so setting up multiple instruments before using Crescendo is a smart move. The Troubadour also gains access to Tales as utility skills. These are based on major characters in the Guild Wars 2 storyline, giving it a bit of a Revenant touch by invoking legends. Tales are mostly instant cast skills. For example, Tale of the Soulkeeper, based on Almara Soulkeeper, grants you offensive boons. Tale of the Valiant Marshal, based on Traherne, gives you defensive boons instantly. These effects can be amplified by performances, which trigger an extra effect when a specific instrument is active. For instance, Tale of the Soulkeeper grants 2 extra notes and shares its boons with allies when the lute is playing. Tale of the Tortured Mastermind, based on Scarlet from Living World Season 1, deals damage and applies conditions. Its performance also triggers when the lute is playing, applying conditions and breaking defiance bars. The elite skill Tale of the August Queen tells the story of Queen Jenna. It grants allies distortion, allowing them to avoid attacks briefly, and a chaos aura, giving boons. The performance always triggers, letting you play all instruments at once. If the instruments are already active, the duration is greatly increased, letting you enjoy the boons and positive effects longer. The Troubadour skills support every playstyle with a heavy emphasis on support, but you can also go for condition-based or power DPS builds. For example, Mayhem lets the flute apply Torment, Hold the Note extends boons, Shredding increases lute damage, Love Song gives allies boons when playing the harp. Grandmaster traits like Fortissimo give you notes after using skill 5 and boost your attributes, while Altered Chord extends positive effects for you and your allies. Altered Chord in particular really enhances group support by extending boons significantly, making it a strong pick in group play. In open world, I tried a straightforward power DPS build which worked well since I could easily support myself. That said, the Troubadour feels more like a support specialization. The lute's range is 600, while other instruments have shorter ranges, meaning it's mostly effective at close range or when standing together with a group. I also found myself spamming skills to generate notes quickly and keep instruments active. Fun? Yes, but mostly at close range. Overall, the Troubadour has strong potential. Its support and utility will make it a staple for years to come. It offers a unique take on the Mesmer, rather than just being a reskin of another elite specialization. The instant cast tales of former and current characters are a really nice touch. Next up, the Necromancer gains the Ritualist Elite Specialization, and oh boy, I love this idea. My main profession in the original Guild Wars was a Necromancer, and back then you could combine it with a secondary profession, and Ritualist was often chosen because it gave Necromancers healing options thanks to their efficient resource management when a creature was defeated. But let's not dig too deep into that. Even though Necromancers and Ritualists were quite different in the original, both mechanically and lore-wise, it's fun to see the Ritualist make a return in this form. With a Ritualist, the Necromancer's Death Shroud is replaced by the Ritualist Shroud, giving you the ability to summon spirits. Skill 1, Essence Blast, is a projectile that grows stronger the more spirits you have. When used, your spirits will prioritize that target. Skill 2, Anguish, summons the Spirit of Anguish, which launches a barrage of projectiles at your target and applies a debuff that makes the target take more damage from summoned creatures, including minions. Skill 3, Spirit of Wanderlust, targets an area, dealing damage and dazing enemies on impact. The spirit continues to deal damage and applies conditions in the lingering area. Skill 4, Spirit of Preservation, summons at your location, granting boons to allies. After a short delay, it releases a burst of healing that also removes conditions from you and your allies. Skill 5, Summon Spirits, lets you and your spirits shadow step to a targeted location. Spirits immediately attack if they weren't already attacking something. A classic skill from the original game, letting you bring your spirits with you instead of resummoning them. As utility skills, the Ritualist gains weapon spells, also inspired by the original Guild Wars Ritualist. Splinter Weapon gives a weapon buff, triggering an extra strike when you hit an enemy. Allies benefit too, though with fewer stacks. Weapon of Warding blocks incoming attacks and grants protection when the last stack is removed. This effect also works for allies, making it a strong defensive option. The elite skill, Zinray's Weapon, heals and siphons health from your enemies whenever you lose a percentage of your health. It also works for allies and can break stuns. These skills work really well in open world, whether you're playing DPS or support. The traits focus on spirits and weapons, with each line offering supportive and defensive options. Empowering Spirits gives your allies boons when you summon spirits. Spirit Strength boosts healing and outgoing damage. Wielder's Boon, a nod to the original game, lets allies get the full stacks and benefits from your weapon skills, which is especially useful in a full support build. Lingering Spirits keeps your spirits active even after leaving the shroud, letting them continue to deal damage while you use your regular weapons. In open world, the spirits are fun and powerful, providing damage, crowd control and support. However, you do not have as much control than you have over minions. Spirits follow targets slower but deal more damage. And once you leave the Ritualist Shroud, spirits no longer respond directly and just follow the last attacked enemy, which makes sense, but it is worth keeping in mind. Weapon skills are excellent for both support and offense. Splinter Weapon is particularly strong in meta events, helping your allies and minions deal extra damage. Weapon of Warding has saved me with its stun break a couple times, and Nightmare Weapon and Zinray's Weapon restore health quickly. The Ritualist is going to have a strong presence in meta events, offering countless ways to heal, support and provide boons. It's fun to play, full of potential in all game modes, and a faithful translation of the original Guild Wars skills. One of my favorites for sure. Last but certainly not least, the Evoker, the elite specialization for the Elementalist. Elementalists already have elemental summons at their command, but now they get a permanent companion in the form of a familiar. Outside of combat, you can choose your familiar, which appears next to your attunements. You have 4 options. Ignite summons a fox that damages and burns enemies. Splash summons an otter that heals allies. Zap summons a hare that damages enemies and increases your outgoing damage. And Calcify summons a toad that applies crowd control and grants barrier. Choosing a familiar affects your attunement. For example, if you choose Zap, your air attunement recharges faster, letting you swap back to it almost instantly. Familiars also have an active ability, which is charged by using your weapon skills. Using weapon skills in the same attunement as your familiar doubles the charge gain, letting you use the ability quickly. After using a basic attack a couple times, you can unleash the empowered skill, which is stronger and has new effects. For instance, Zap's empowered skill shadow steps to your enemies and deals critical damage. The Invoker's utility skills are all meditations, near instant skills that can also break stuns depending on your active familiar. Rejuvenate, the healing skill, is a good opener, giving your familiar an extra charge right away. Fox's Fury grants allies boons and burns enemies. If the fire attunement is active, it also breaks stuns. Otter's Compassion converts conditions on nearby allies into regeneration. Hare's Agility deals damage, while Toad's Fortitude applies bleeding, deals damage and grants protection. The elite skill, Elemental Procession, summons all familiars at once and uses all their empowered skills at the targeted location. The traits focus mostly on damage with familiars, though there are supportive options too. Electric Enhancement buffs Hare's agility with extra lightning strikes. Elemental Balance reduces incoming damage while increasing outgoing damage. Major Grandmaster traits like Familiar Focus increase damage, healing or defensives depending on your familiar. And Familiar's Blessing cures conditions and grants allies boons. One standout trait is Specialized Elements, which locks you into a single achievement based on your familiar. You can't swap elements, but your familiar skill charges much faster. When the familiar skill is used, it also recharges your weapon skills. This alone makes the Evoker feel epic. In open world, I tested the Evoker extensively. It's fun to play and deals a lot of damage. You do need to watch your health closely, as with any Elementalist, but it is very rewarding. You do tend to stay as long as possible in your familiar's attunement, since it charges the ability much faster, but you'll sometimes need to swap for cooldowns. Managing your charges can feel intense. You need to watch them closely and use them as soon as they're full, or you won't generate new ones. This focus, combined with the empowered charges, gives the Evoker a higher learning curve. Using the Specialized Elements trait made PvE much easier, since you only need to focus on 5 skills and keep using your familiar. You can simply use one achievement. It's still about managing the familiar, but the gameplay becomes much smoother and more manageable. Overall, the Evoker has great DPS potential, though the higher skill curve may be challenging for some. Properly managing achievements and charges rewards you with high damage output. Specialized Elements makes open world really enjoyable. I'm excited to see what builds this Elite Specialization will inspire in the future. Alright, so it's time to rank these Elite Specializations. Do keep in mind this is my personal take, so let me know in the comments if your list looks different. At the very top, in what I'm calling my S tier, we've got the Ritualist and the Amalgam. Both Elite Specializations just click. They feel smooth, they feel powerful and fun, with tons of build potential in both groups and solo play. Easily my favorites of the bunch. Next, in the A tier, I'm putting the Conduit and the Galeshot. Both of these play really well, feel smooth and bring something fresh to the game. They're unique, fun, and for me, some of the stronger picks outside of the S tier. Just below in the B tier, I got the Evoker and the Troubadour. They're definitely fun and creative, but I found them a little less consistent overall. The Evoker has great damage potential, but comes with a higher learning curve, while the Troubadour leans more into a support and shines in groups rather than solo play. Still good specs, but not quite as polished or fun to play as the Conduit or the Galeshot. In the C tier, I've got the Paragon and the Antiquary. Both are flavorful and they do have their good moments, but I found them less consistent and a little bit more situational. They're good, but just not my go-to picks. And finally, in D tier, I've placed the Luminary. It's not bad, but compared to others, it feels a little confused in its design. Like, it doesn't really know what it wants to be. It's usable, but for me, it's not as fun to play. So that's my personal tier list. The Ritualist takes the crown, a strong middle group with the Conduit, Amalgam, Galeshot, Troubadour and Evoker, then the Paragon and the Antiquary just below, and Luminary at the bottom. But hey, that's just my ranking. Now I want to hear yours. Drop your tier list in the comments and let's see how your opinions line up. And of course, if you enjoyed the breakdown, don't forget to stick around by subscribing. Thanks for watching and I'll see you in the next one. Peace!